Hello, my friend. This is Storyteller Sid. Have you ever wondered, amidst all the fake godmen, conmen, and fraudsters in the world, if there are actually people with special powers? It's an interesting thing to wonder about. And if such people did exist, would their powers be a boon or a curse for them in society? How would normal people treat them? From the book Aspen Leaves by Divya Balaji, I bring you the short story The Witch. This, my friend, is the tale of the veteran spiritual performer Paroli and her gifted young apprentice, Varnamai. The village rituals never bored Varnamai. They were exciting because they were meaningless. Even more so when they were directed at the likes of her and had to be performed by the matron. She watched the older woman, Piroli, perform the penance with her eyes closed, hands raised in worship, her body swaying in what they called as a spiritual oneness. But what Varnamai knew was probably the after effects of the toddy from last night. Piroli's movements had gradually become wilder. The chanting around her was increasing in pitch, and the crowd was whipping itself into a frenzy. Their people had come together in groups of 3 and 4, in the mass, chanting discordantly, making sure the energy never waned. And no one had the slightest inkling of doubt. Piroli's instructions were clear. Never let anyone pause or observe for longer than a few moments. There was a pattern that was not open to observation. There was a method that no one should catch on to. There was an upscale level of cheating, but that, Piroli said, benefited the people. There was something about the woman and her performances that could not be discounted. Most women in her place would have gone the regular way, ostracized by the towns or villages they had lived in, and resorting to their mountain retreats. But not Piroli. She became the village soothsayer by day and the biggest gossip monger at nights. Her well-placed agents scouted for information even across neighboring villages innocuously, constantly relaying it all in a stream to Piroli, who was blessed with filters and the acumen that told her which was important and which was just chaff. Even if pitted against someone from a distant land who had come to seek her advice, Piroli would make them wait under the guise of requesting an audience with the gods until relevant data was collected. Piroli then used the information to good effect, allaying the fears of the people, giving them many good ideas for life and business, solving illnesses that would otherwise require complex potions, and, most importantly, using her special skills to silently heal children and the aged, the two segments of people who did not question the miracles and were just thankful or awed. The list was endless. Varnamai knew, deep down in her heart, that what Piroli had chosen to do with the talents she had been born with was perhaps the best decision. But lost in thoughts, she did not realize when Piroli called out to her for her bit in the performance. She heard the urgency in the voice when it came the second time. Varnamai. Shaking herself awake, she reached Piroli, who was frowning, her act slipping by a bit, and held out her hand for the fire pot. Piroli placed the roaring, flaming pot in her hands, clearly expressing her displeasure. Varnamai sighed. This was going to result in a long night of angrily cooked food and ranting, no matter how good their business was that day. There was that gasp from the public as expected. Fire was the one thing they feared, primitive as they were, above everything. Living near the forests that had burned one too many times in forest fires, especially those that spread to the nearby crop fields, they were only very aware of how ravenous fire actually was, and how deeply it can inflict damage. It was into this village that Piroli, the woman whose skin was immune to fire, was born. A freak, an abomination who was safe from something that ate up her peers regularly and destroyed their lives. Varnamai, I command the wind and the rain, the sun and the moon, the gold and the silver, and all the elements of nature to come to your mind, awaken your soul, and tell the good word to the people of our village. Piroli was shouting. a bit more aggressively than usual. Varnamai assumed it was because of her split-second indecision that had presented a danger of being discovered, something Piroli would have never allowed. The fire never burned her hands, as Varnamai had always observed since childhood. Nor did the insects bite. Winters were not unbearably cold, and no mud or dirt ever clung to her porcelain skin. Cows and dogs, crows and peacocks nimbly danced out of her way no matter how much she chased them and tried to pet them. It was not until Piroli had paid her a visit that Varnamai knew that she was special and that people felt the forces of the elements and minor inconveniences regularly, and most had learned to fear them. "We are not usual," Piroli had said, her eyes aching with sadness. "Are we special?" Varnamai had asked, her eyes shining brightly, wanting to confirm what she already knew. Piroli had reached out to the burning logs beside her then, dipping her hands amidst them, holding still for a few moments as a fascinated Varnamai watched. How many times had her mother come rushing when she had tried that? Taking her smooth, blister-free hand outside, Piroli had smiled sadly at the girl in front of her, saying in a really quiet voice, "No, we are not special. We are merely cursed. And if we do not rise above it, those around us will bury us long before we can even guess what we are capable of doing. And that is why, little one, I shall take you with me, train you to use this judiciously, and make a living out of it, instead of being chased back into the mountains like many before us." That had been 17 years ago. Varnamai had been 2 then, and had already discovered that she would not even get wet in the water bodies, not until she really wanted to. Even Piroli herself had been surprised by that, calling it a special talent. Quick as lightning, Varnamai had been taken away from her parents' house straight to Piroli's hut, where she had been further trained in what Piroli had called the magics. Not magic, as Piroli would insist, but multiple magics. Though distraught, Varnamai's mother, who had by then a shrewd idea of her daughter's freaky skills, thought it best to have her safe and sound somewhere, instead of at her own house where she'd been exposed to the brutality of the ignorant people. But for all her excitement, Varnamai quickly realized that the magics were nothing but cheap parlor tricks. Piroli had cautioned her not to indulge in her original mystical skills or wish to be trained in them, for people were okay with only those tricks of magic that seemed to help them. Once they realized that someone was powerful beyond their comprehension, Piroli said, they would find a reason sooner or later to bring that person down. There was nothing people feared more than unlimited power, and anything that could not permeate their closed minds was, according to them, unlimited. If someone could move mountains and reverse rivers, people were on their guard immediately. What if the same power was extended to their personal lives? All they wanted was some rain occasionally and solutions for the pests that kept ruining their crops right before harvest. Piroli had mastered this art and had been good with timing the rains and the weather, always silently encouraging people to arrange for the rituals just before the rains were due. People invariably were surprised when the rains came as predicted, even if the same thing happened every year, unfailingly. Especially in those years where the rains were delayed by a few weeks, people got flustered, and Piroli never consented to do the rituals immediately. She waited, she watched, and she asked the fashionable city folk for what were known as weather updates and arranged the sacrifices and rituals accordingly. The rains followed soon, always attributed to Piroli's mystic powers. But right then, things were not looking up. Varnamai sighed. The city folk had failed, and Piroli's naysayers were only gaining more volume as rituals repeatedly produced no results. Everyone was getting anxious. The crops were withering, the land was drying up, and fields were breaking up into parched segments as the rocks from the mountains rolled down in the dryness, blocked only by dead trees that also eventually gave way, making the rocks roll down on unsuspecting people who happened to pass by during the hot noon times. Varnamai listened to Piroli's shouts, feeling a strange tingling in her hands. Was the fire burning her? Surprised, Varnamai looked at her own hand. That had never happened before. But even as she watched, angry blisters were forming in her hand, the nerves sneaking up her fair forearm, shining a deep blue against alabaster in the flickering firelight. Trying to come to terms with the alien sensation, Varnamai closed her eyes. Maybe for once she would pray sincerely. The chanting dulled in her brain, and she raised her face to the sky, wanting, needing guidance that would tell her that she was not a sham, not a cheap parlor trickster who cheated people for money and food. These were her neighbors, and this was her village that was suffering now. What could she, the woman who had learned to control water bodies so that they would not affect her, do for the village and its people? Piroli had good intentions, Varnamai knew, but not good enough to put her above the line tactics. Moments passed, or it might have been hours. Varnamai felt every painful blister, every tautened nerve, until suddenly there was a wrench in her gut that almost unbalanced her. She steadied herself, wanting to control what felt like water gushing out of her limbs, afraid that something had collapsed inside her body. She opened her eyes, startled to see the whole village bowing before her, most of them kneeling. Even Paroli had moved away, her eyes wide in fear. It was then that Varnamai saw that sight she would never forget. The very mountains at the edge of the village had split, and water was gushing from what seemed like rocks themselves in great torrents. There was no time for people to move, spellbound as they were by Varnamai's blistered skin and fevered eyes. The water gushed down even further, drenching parched fields, wetting the earth where it mattered, filling waterways and wells in the line. It was now a week after that incident. Varnamai was inside Piroli's hut. The older woman had refused to chastise her, but had expressed her fears and concerns with almost tender affection. The village had no water problem any longer, but the houses had flooded. Some were impressed, but most were angry. Piroli had avoided everyone by saying that Varnamai was terminally ill while the blisters had healed. Hearing a sudden scuffle outside, the women looked out. And so many things happened in a flash. An angry mob had been hurling abuses and fire torches at their hut, calling them witches who brought on ruin. Piroli had accepted it all stoically, not even trying to correct them. She focused on getting herself and Varnamai out, but the mob had bolted all doors and windows from outside. The house, which had been unaffected by the said floods because of the occupants inside, was dry enough to burn down too quickly. The mob's noise faded as Piroli came close to her, hugging her protectively, not letting the fire affect Varnamai directly. I told you, Piroli's eyes seemed to accuse her, not to help those who do not want to be helped. But out loud, Piroli merely smiled, whispering, "You finally showed the village what we are capable of. I am proud of you." Varnamai closed her eyes, her apology dying in her throat. As she watched the fire finally eat her skin, Varnamai's last thought was that maybe her matron had been right.